they can always check things out when I send around the recording. But Ed Crasnick, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to hear from you. I could give a short intro to you. People have read your bio, but if you just want to sum up who you are and where you're coming from in a couple of sentences to kick us off, maybe that's a good point for us to start from.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you, Annie. It's a pleasure to be here, a pleasure to talk to you and the group. And I guess the first thing I have to say is if psychotherapy can be converted to frequent flyer miles, I'd be eligible for a free trip to Pluto. I'm telling you right now. I come from this background of half my life is either self-help or therapy on both sides, and half my life is comedy and entertainment. And so about 2008, I was a stand-up, and I am a stand-up for many years. And I started getting roles on TV shows as an actor, and I started writing shows, and then I went into development. But in 2008, I started to realize, what if I could unite humor and emotion, or mental health and comedy? Was there a way to do that? And I was making shows for other people, and I decided that, yeah, I'm going to try it. And so since that time, it is the place where I feel most at home, where I feel like I can be my whole self. Coincidentally, the world has gone insane and realizes now that there's a need for not only talking about mental health, but for practicing it. Because it is a practice, but it's not spoken about as a practice. It's really spoken about as a topic. And as long as it's a topic and not a practice, we're going to have issues in this world. And what is, what really is the best way, or a powerful way to normalize self-care and mental health and the practice of mental health? And to me, that's entertainment. That's what you do. You use entertainment and you combine it with skills. You have skills-based media that's actionable, that actually teaches people how to take care of themselves emotionally, their thoughts and their feelings, and how to relate to them. And you do it through entertainment. You do it through actual shows that are entertaining as such. They're not lectures. They're not, we're not talking about it. We're showing it by the way the characters move, whatever the show is, or whatever the podcast is, or whatever the book is. We're showing it in an entertaining, familiar way. And that way, you're reaching the broad spectrum of people, as opposed to the crowd that shops at Whole Foods. No negative on Whole Foods, but it's just like, we don't have to worry about these people. They're already going to seek this kind of stuff out. We need to worry about the people who have no access, poorer communities, people who are, not communities of color, and people that don't have a lot of money and a lot of agency in our culture. And we need to reach those people. And the best way to reach them is through media, through TV and entertainment and audio. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm starting a mental health entertainment network, and it's an entire network that has, that has shows and movies and books and TV and live events and all kinds of projects. Like I said, I started in 2008, and I started doing I know you asked for just a few sentences, so I can stop here.
No, keep going. We're here to learn about you.
So I started doing this is almost better than therapy in a way. Maybe I'll just do this every week. No, so I started a self-help variety show. I used a variety format. And the idea was, we're going to unite entertainers and self-help experts. We're going to have entertainers talk about their life issues in the interview panel style. And then we're going to have various experts from different fields come in and actually address their issues and demonstrate skills. They're going to act it out. And then we're going to have music, and we're going to have sketches and bits. And we did that. And we did about 100 of those shows, and it was amazing. It was one of the best things I've ever done. because it was, it had takeaway. It was real. It was really entertaining, but almost both ends of it like lifted each other up. Like the entertainment aspect, people talking about their real life issues and relating their struggles was fantastic. And then actually having experts come in different fields and teach them skills in front of an audience. That was that was proof to me that this is the place to be. And then I took that and I made it a little bit more specific. I worked with a psychodramatist, a role play expert, and I had a panel of comedic actors, and I had a show called Acting Out, another live show, another web-based show. And we basically, there was a guest who would talk about their life, and then guided by the therapist, who was my sidekick, they would act out their issue in front of a live audience. And so an example of that would be, well, you're going to see an example. I'm going to show you a clip. But it was spectacular. It was electric. And what I found out through that experience was that people aren't tired. What's tiring them out is that they're carrying emotions. What's tiring them out is that they have stuck feelings inside. And this is the problem with our culture. Everybody is carrying around either a level of trauma or emotions that want to get out, but that are held in because of thoughts and beliefs. And so when they would come to this show, it would be like you get that thing of like that LA thing of like, oh my God, how long is this going to be? When's dinner? But then you would see people's faces change because they'd see somebody, dealing with a real life issue, but talking to it as opposed to talking about it, doing psychodrama, acting it out. Mo Collins, who you're going to see in a clip, she was on Parks and Rec at the time, and she's a Mad TV, she's a brilliant actress. She's on The Walking Dead now. I asked her, I said, what's going on with you? She was a guest. And she said, well, I just got back from seeing my mom and I hate my mom. And I said to the audience, well, really, how many people hate their moms? And everybody raised their hand. How many people hate her mom, not having even met the woman or heard about her? Everybody raised. Said, okay, how's that going to resolve itself? She says, in a funeral home. The therapist is sitting on stage with me, and there's a panel of 3 comedic actors. The therapist says, this is your lucky day. This is a funeral home. And I'm going to ask one of our panelists, Moon Zappa at the time, to come down here and lay down in this grave and be your mom. She's finally gone. And now you get to do the eulogy. Now, these are funny people. This woman is now crying. Another panelist, Jimmy Pardo, comedian, looks down and he says, I have one question. Why is Moon Zappa laying down in a grave like she's a guest star on CSI Miami who lays in a grave like that? Now they're laughing, okay? Over the next 10 minutes, this woman will play her mother. She'll play herself as a little kid. She'll play different people in her lives. The panelists will be guided by the therapist. It's therapeutic role play. It's not just role play for laughs. And at the end of 10 minutes, she has a different relationship with her mom. Her mom's not there. So we did like 100 of those shows. Everyone was completely different, but everyone was electric because the audience was part of it, and they had an ability to have mixed emotions, which is when you're most fully alive. When you're most fully alive, you're open to all kinds of feelings and thoughts coming through, but they go through. You're not holding on to them, and you're not in fight or flight mode. People today are in fight or flight mode. The world is in survival mode. And the survival mode is perpetuated by the kind of media we watch and the kind of media that's around us. It's a conflict-based fight or flight mode, brain tuning that people are in now. And that's a problem. That's a problem. So the research that you guys are doing on shows like 13 Reasons Why and how hungry teens are for information that they'll actually reach out during a show. This is why we have to embed the skills and the conversation in the show and actually be part of the experience as opposed to where can I get help? you should never have to ask the question, where can I get help? You have to meet people where they are. So I work with a lot of organizations that meet people where they are. And that's what I'm trying to do with this kind of mental health entertainment. So maybe we could go to we can start with our deck, and we can, we can have, maybe we'll have time for questions, if any, or comments, whatever people want to do. It's fine with me.
Perfect. All right.
So
I'll do my best here, but if you need me to go back or anything, we'll work for it.
That's great. Thank you. And thanks for agreeing to do that, because I wouldn't have. Okay. Well, first of all, I'm not an artist and I'm not a deck maker, and this is put together in a rudimentary way, so you'll forgive that. It's not glossy, and it's not, but we can go back to the first. Yeah. So the name of the network is Well Now. It's a mental health entertainment network. And here we see the image of, the statue, when the Statue of Liberty goes in for therapy and doesn't have the strength to lift the torch all the way, it's probably time. It's probably time. So that's what we're trying to do. So, okay. So putting the fun in dysfunction. So we're really trying to stop talking about mental health and start practicing it. That's what the whole thing is about. We're really trying to, I think one of the best ways in comedy to spotlight behaviors and to spotlight, mental health is to exaggerate. And so that while there might be some comedy, there might be some silliness, not all of our shows are like that, but some of them are. And we're trying to entertain people. First and foremost, it has to be entertaining. What I've learned from doing this stuff is that if you start with seriousness, if you start by talking about things, what happens is people are really interested in mental health, so they want to talk about it. So I've talked to the funniest comedians in the world, and once I start talking about mental health, they completely lose their comedic sense, and they start wanting to know about the skills. So first and foremost, it has to be entertaining. So these are just questions and topics. This is just scattershot stuff. Mental health is a practice, okay? How do I come to it? I think everybody comes to it in a different way. My family, these were really in Boston, Massachusetts, growing up in the 60s. These are really talented people, my parents and my sister, and they were very thoughtful people who had no language for how to take care of themselves. No language, no skills. Nobody ever taught them anything. They just went through a lot of trauma. And this was a family that went to therapy at a time when it wasn't popular. We went. We had all the books. We had all the stuff. What we didn't have is we didn't know how to do it. We talked about it. And look, if talk therapy weren't helpful, I wouldn't be here. However, that said, it's something you do. The problem with therapy is it takes place in an office. I don't live in an office. You have to follow me home. You have to sleep in my bed, and you have to see how I live. And I need skills that address that. I don't need to talk about it more, which is what I realize when I'm doing that. So my family history is the Crasnick family is steeped in American history. First family to go back on the Mayflower because somebody forgot to take a jacket, obviously. The Crasnick family steeped in American history, original signers on the Declaration of Codependence, obviously. And then my uncle Caleb Crasnick fought in the Civil War, great uncle. He was a hypochondriac, the first hypochondriac to fight in the Civil War, and surrendered at Vicksburg because it cleared up his chest cold. So those are jokes about my family, but really they were just wonderful people who had no context for how to take care of themselves. How do you reach people? Make mental health entertaining. Normalize it by putting it into entertainment as part of the entertainment. Use skills that people can grab onto, that anybody can use, because What I realized from working with a lot of experts over the years is that they used to study depression and what makes people sick. And then they realized that they weren't getting very far. And Marty Seligman at University of Pennsylvania started to study what makes people well. And the interventions, the practices are extremely simple, but not usual. And so to help people practice, so how do you take this science-based, evidence-based stuff that they're learning and bring it into pop culture, bring it into the world? And so I've worked with a lot of different organizations that do that. And I've tried to bring my entertainment part to it. So by watching the shows and by listening to the medium, it's passive self-care. You're actually having takeaway from not even doing anything. Then there's active and interactive self-care that's tipped off by whatever the particular piece of media is. There's also something called self-parenting. It's not talked about, that phrase is not mentioned a lot, but it's a great way to frame self-care. Self-parenting, all of the things that you do for your kids or that you talk to children in a certain way, you have to learn how to talk to yourself that way. Thoughts and feelings, it's a two-way conversation. When I was growing up, the one way that people would describe people as crazy is if you see people on the street and they talk to themselves, they're crazy. And while that may be true in some way, while they may have mental health issues, it's actually the healthiest thing in the world to talk to yourself. But we don't understand it. Okay, even to talk out loud to yourself. So it is a two-way conversation. If it's not a two-way conversation, then you have somebody shouting in your head all the time, negative bias, and you're just carrying that stuff. You're regurgitating and carrying it. Your brain is actually tagging these things that you're telling yourself. And we have the world that we have. So an example. So skills-based entertainment. I wrote this show 10 years ago, 11 years ago. It's called Therapy Squad Emotional Crimes Unit. Sounds pretty broad, okay? But I made up this whole thing about the LAPD. They're trying to get good press. And so what they start to think, we're going to study that crime begins with how you think. It starts in your head, emotional crimes. We're going to train police. We're going to train our force in resilience skills. And we're going to bring in therapists, and they're going to be part of the LA police force. Of course, now it's actually happening. But 11 years ago, people thought it was insane. So now I created a show where these misfit cops who are just not doing well, the worst on the force, the worst people, completely dysfunctional, are now working with therapists who also aren't good at what they do. But the skills they're learning are real. What they're learning is actually real. So here we have a cop comedy show, and the takeaway is the actual stuff that you need to do to take care of yourself. So that's an example of how do creators build in. Like, sure, I could create a vampire show that could do the same thing. Sure, I could create any genre. But I have to have a consciousness about what are they learning? What are they taking away? What are the characters going through? And how do they take care of themselves in this world that I'm building, whether it's a book or a podcast or a movie or a live event? Normalize mental health by making it entertaining. Okay, this is silly stuff. This is stuff that I put together. It's not professional. It's not done by an artist. But I like to live in this world. So I have a whole series called The Monsters of Mental Health. It's a tour. It's comedians. It's people basically talking about their fears and exploring, fight or flight, exploring how to deal with fear and insecurity. So here we have a movie poster, and it's this, everything's really big, and my emotions are killing me. They're killing his girlfriend. And at the bottom, there's a skill. There's a little bit of information, okay? Pause, acknowledge and feel emotions. Emotions are meant to be felt. They're sending messages. So in a movie poster, What are we doing? We're entertaining people and making them laugh, and we're giving them a little tip that maybe there's a different way to look at this. Okay? So the art of it is that. The therapist from the Black Lagoon, did I get a check from you last week? This is my experience, 1,000%. And the woman is saying to herself, it's what I say to myself that matters. So as silly or as rudimentary as it might be, this is what we need to focus on. How do I talk to myself? What do I tell myself? Notice it. So this is, again, we're trying to promote these very basic things. This one, a lot of people don't like. I loved it because it was a way to promote my podcast, our podcast. I work with a therapist, and we have this podcast where we have comedians who talk about their issues and then practice skills with a therapist, okay? So we say, here, I'm a piece of shit, I'm at peace with shit. I love that. And then, of course, we have, it should be useful. So as something as silly as the mental health is hot potholders, you need a potholder, but we're getting a message across. As silly as it is, as stupid as it is, why not more of that? Something useful and something that makes you laugh a little bit. Normalize it. So here we have a brain license exam. The idea that people don't understand how their brain works at this stage in evolution is a real issue. It's hard to fathom. The brain is a very complex system, but there are some basic things, and we should all take a driver's license test for this. So here's the BMV, the Brain Driver's Handbook. We can take a look at the quiz is next. Okay, poorly constructed, but here, go with me on it. Your brain is sending out a danger signal. Who has the right of way? My brain, of course. What are you nuts? B is TikTok, and C is you. You have the right of way. It's a two-way conversation. You can acknowledge your brain's signal, question it, and thank it. Okay? Thank you, brain. Thank you for telling me I'll never make it. I'm actually not thinking about right now. I'm talking to scholars and storytellers, and I'm having a good time. But thank you for looking out for me. I know you think I'm in danger. Thanks. When your amygdala is hijacked, the fight, flight, or freeze center is in that part of the amygdala. How much space should you allow yourself and your vehicle? 50 feet, 500 feet? I love amygdala's music, and I'm seeing her at Coachella. As much space as you need. Take a breath and focus on the present. The answer is C. Okay, as rudimentary as this seems, when people get into a spiral, I was never told that you actually stop, take a breath, and you think generally to change the direction of your thinking. You don't think specifically. You think generally. Oh, this chair feels good. My pants are great. The back of this chair is very comforting. Go general. Nobody ever told me that. Nobody ever told me that I'm not my thoughts and feelings. If I was told that as a 5-year-old, I'd be a lot taller today. It's a really simple concept, but nobody ever says it. The midbrain regulates emotion and it believes A, in road rage, B, everybody is better than you, and C, whatever you tell it. We have the ability to talk to our brain. We have the ability to communicate. And whatever you tell your midbrain, that's what it believes. Until 2 years ago, nobody ever told me that there was something at my brainstem called the reticular activation system. That's a part of your brain that actually tags whatever you are telling it. If you tell it to look for Donald Trump news, it will look for Donald Trump news. If you tell it that everything's possible, it will believe everything's possible. It will believe whatever you tell it. So there you go. Okay, a mental health media diet. Okay, what we watch and listen can either elevate, entertain, or keep us in survival mode. Why is it important to advertisers to keep us in survival mode? Why is that important? Why is it important to keep things addictive? Because it puts us in fight or flight mode. When you're in fight or flight mode, you make a better consumer. That's why they do it. That's how they do it. You're not going to be as great as a consumer, they think, if you don't have something to fight against. And so the mental health media diet, this is most people's diet, is really this. And the funny thing is, I live by the ocean. I'm walking the other day and I'm listening to a podcast about serial killers. Not that it isn't well produced, not that it's not intoxicating and interesting. I'm not saying anything bad about the storytelling, but why? I live by the ocean. Must I do this at this moment, even though it might feel familiar and addictive? Must I? I could, but let's make sure that later in the day, I'm going to take off the earphones and I'm going to listen to the ocean. Or I'm going to listen to something, I'm going to listen to solutions journalism, a whole movement that's trying to talk about people that are solving social issues in the world. And there are many outlets for that. Let's give equal time, at least. I know about the Ted Bundy story. I know he's a fascinating character. Must I fill my head with Ted Bundy? And I watched Rachel Maddow the other night, who I love. I'm watching Rachel Maddow, and she goes on a 10-minute setup that really is about civil rights. But what she's doing is she's talking about atrocities that have happened. And then she ends up showing a clip of today's latest news, which is what? A guy wandering into a dollar store with an assault rifle and the footage of him opening fire on people. What are we doing? Why is that necessary? Is that the only way you know how to frame a story? Excuse me, that must be Rachel calling now. I don't know if you can hear that, but I've never experienced that in my life, but we're live. We can go on to the next thing. I'm not going to get that. Okay. So like I told you, I work with a lot of organizations that do really interesting things. And one of the ones that I work with is called the Confess Project. What is the Confess Project? Literally an organization that trains barbers to be mental health advocates, barbers in Black neighborhoods around the country. This is what they do. They have trained over 3,000 barbers around the United States in empathetic listening, validation, and all kinds of skills, patient navigation, to help people while they're getting groomed. They're going to help them, and the people are going to talk about their issues. So we're doing a podcast series about this. There's a real hero named Lorenzo Lewis who is, who spearheads this. It comes right out of his life. He was incarcerated. He was born in a prison. His mother and father were teenagers, doing time in prison, and he was born. And then he experienced a lot of mental health issues, a lot of problems. But he also had an aunt who owned a beauty shop. And when he'd go to the beauty shop, he'd see, oh, that's a good place that people actually share their problems with each other. So he invented the Confess Project of America. That's one of the major organizations. And what he's teaching me, what he's taught us, is that mental health is a community issue, not a personal issue. You meet people where they are, where they already go. You don't tell them to go find a therapist. You meet them in supermarkets. You go to Walmart and you have a therapist there. You go to your barber and the barber is trained. Anybody can be a mental health advocate. And it's actually fairly simple. And a lot of it revolves around empathetic listening and validation. Loneliness. When the Surgeon General comes out and says loneliness is one of the number one public health issue in the country, it's time to listen. Now we can go to it. Okay, that's it. That's my little, I never know when Mental Health Awareness Month is, and so I always feel like I should just lay down in a bed. And now I'll play you a couple clips that can sort of illustrate, what I'm talking about. There's There's a little bit of video and a little bit of audio here for you. They're short. This first one is an audio clip, clip one. I called up a friend of mine, Kevin Pollak, who's a great actor and happens to be an amazing impressionist. And I asked him if he would do Al Pacino's masterclass on anger. And so here's Kevin Pollak.
I've been, oh boy, they compliment me on 7 decades of iconic films. Hooah. They said I could do it in my kitchen, where I keep my cereal in broad daylight when my cat plays with her toys. Okie dokie, I said. Anger. Hey, look, I mean, it's easy to get angry. I'm having trouble here recording this damn thing on my phone. I still don't understand how my phone knows what I'm saying, let alone records it. It's just one crazy day. A few points of interest about anger. You gotta feel it. Feel! Express! Don't fight. Personally, I'm a fan of anger. Anger, my friends, is a gateway emotion. Oh, yeah. It sits on top of other feelings. Is that nuts? Yeah. So you got to be open and to blow the lid off every once in a while. When I did Reciprocal, for example, this is a guy who didn't want to take a payoff. I'm telling you straight, be aware of what you feel. Check in, don't check out. You got to get a real life payoff if you follow these instructions. That's the truth. I say feel it. Move through it. Celebrate it!
Okay, so, it's a silly thing, right?
Okay.
But the things that he's saying are actually real. Anger is a gateway emotion. It sits on top of other feelings. And to look underneath, you have to go through it. You can't, the things that he's saying, as silly as this is, are real. So that's an example. And I'll give you another clip. We're not going to play this whole clip, but another partner that I work with is a company called GoZen. It's Rini Jane, who studied with Martin Seligman at the University of Pennsylvania, and she teaches kids through animation. She teaches resilience skills, all evidence and research based. And this is a character that I came up with. She brought in an actor that it just wasn't done very well, but you'll get the idea. And we'll play some of it, and then I'll tell you, Annie, when we can stop.
Half-humans are wired to survive, you know. We pay more attention to what we think might be a threat. Bad stuff sticks in our brains much more than the good stuff.
So bad thoughts stick? What's going on here?
Observant! Those are neural structures. Anything we focus our attention on, our experiences, stimulate these things called neurons to fire. Every moment of every day, your brain is reacting, literally changing in response to the thoughts that run through your mind. Neurons are firing when I think a thought. It's called neuronal firing. In other words, if you think the same negative thought over and over again, it fires in the same pathway in the brain over and over again, faster and faster. And check this out. If we repeat the same behavior enough, the same thought, the same feeling, it falls into the habitizer.
What's the habitizer?
You know how you don't have to learn how to tie your shoes every time you tie them?
You're wearing Velcro.
Oh, right. But you get the point. The habitizer operates in the background. It takes care of stuff like breathing and your heart pumping. Things you don't even think about, but still happen all day long.
Okay, I think we get the, but this is part of a whole series and an interactive thing for tweens and for families and things like that. So, creating a 24-hour fitness center, emotional fitness center is what we did. And we made a coach and we made characters. And So all of her work is about that. It's called gozen.com, Gozen. And she's absolutely brilliant and one of my partners. She even has an app for teens called Teen Talks. It's a TikTok for mental health, and it's fantastic. And then the show that I told you about, in fact, I mentioned Mo Collins. This is a clip of that show, not well shot, not well produced, but bear with it. So this is a show where entertainers come on, they talk about their life issues, and then there's a therapist and they act them out in front of an audience.
Creating the good feeling in you?
You know, I've had something enter in that has put perspective on everything. So
Can you share it?
Well, I guess so. I will. This is very new, and so it's I keep wanting to put this into third person, but I have cancer, and so this is new, and it's perspective. It's new. It's been the last month of tests and, you know, being poked and prodded and some shit figured out, but we got it figured out. We know what it is now.
Have revealed something really important. I also hear you say that you don't want to make it too real, that somehow or other. Is that correct? Did I hear you correctly?
Yeah, it's like I'm keeping it in the day of just sort of like, well, where do I go? What do I do today? Mm-hmm. It's all you can do. There's a lot of that. And by the way, I don't recommend farting in an MRI. It's tight.
And there's a man with headphones.
It stays there, and they have headphones. Yeah.
So if your cancer was somehow located here, right this minute, what do you want to say to it?
You're not the boss of me. You're a son of a bitch. You're a piece of fucking putty. And as soon as we do some things, we're going to come in, going to pull you out, going to turn you into a punching bag.
That's... Now, do we dare to have you reverse roles with the cancer and see what the cancer says back? Or should we leave it alone? I really want to leave this up to you.
Well, but I can make it say what I want it to say.
Anything, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see.
You're a son of a bitch, and I'm going to turn you into putty.
I know. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no meaning. I'm sorry I came into your space. I'm just going to get out of here as soon as I can because you are so much better than me. I'm just going to find myself in a toilet somewhere and be gone.
I keep thinking that you've shown up for some purpose. What fucking purpose do you have in coming?
Well, because you keep laying there like a lazy ass. Why don't you just get off your ass and do something with your life? You wanted something to do, I gave you something to do, so don't completely discredit me.
Well, I want you to know that since you showed up, I've been doing more than I've ever done in my life, and what I'm doing is actually real. It beats the hell out of anything I was doing before, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Is cancer ever that sweet?
You're wonderful.
You know, that's the best portrayal of cancer I've ever seen in my life.
I was going to say the nominee for tumor.
But I'm sorry, but imagine Sally Field in that.
They hate me. They really hate me.
Mo Collins, everybody. Can I just say, thank you so much for coming here tonight. And let's see, I have forgotten who I am or where we are. We're going to go to one more commercial. We're going to come back. We're going to wrap up and stay there, please.
Okay, so that's like one moment of like 1,000 moments. We didn't know that she had cancer. She'd never told anybody before that she had cancer. It was happening right then. No preparation, nothing. The therapist had no idea what he was going to say. He just happens to be very good at it. And that's the beauty of, acting out and psychodrama. That's the beauty of practicing. And, they say that life is not a rehearsal. It's not a dress rehearsal. It actually is a rehearsal. You can rehearse any issue, any problem, and you don't have to be an actor and you don't have to have skills, but you do have to externalize it. We cannot carry these things around with us. This is what's going on in the world, and this is why it's going on. So we have to give opportunities to do that. So that's another example. And now just a couple 1-minute audio clips from our one of our podcasts. Let's go to clip number 4.
I was an
Sorry. For some reason,
no problem. So it's a lot of.
Here we go. Okay. I see what's happening.
A lot of
because
coordination.
they're stacked. Okay. All right. We did so well. We were so close.
No, you're doing great. Jeez, Wiz, it's like a show. This could be on Broadway.
Maybe off.
Very off.
Here we go.
No, it's
Our
good.
guest today is Patton Oswalt. First of all, there's very few people that you can talk to about this range of issues. Grief, murder, the Goldbergs.
Well, grief, murder, and the Goldbergs kind of go together. Mental health is actually about saying yes to some pretty mundane, boring things every single day. And a lot of people can't accept that that's actually how to live a successful life, is that you do a set routine of healthy things every day. Because of shows like American Idol, and where they do that fake from out of nowhere. Like he was a bus boy, and then and then if you go look at the backgrounds of any of the actual American Idol winners, they had been professional singers for years. You can be a professional actor, comedian, singer, but not be famous.
So just what a wonderful person Patton is. Known him for years. And then we'll do our last clip, which is you talk about organizations and somebody making a difference. And this woman, her name is Diana Chow, and she's spectacular.
I was an immigrant to the U.S. My parents didn't speak English. We were living below the poverty line. There was a lot of just things that made seeking healthcare very difficult, not to mention mental health care at that. And so I ended up writing letters to strangers. And it was actually through these letters that I finally started to question why I could be so kind and empathetic to these people I'd never even met, yet couldn't seem to do the same for myself. I started to find my own voice, to find a way to tell my own story, to believe that I have a voice that's worth sharing. And so since it started to help me feel a little bit more in control of my own life, I turned it into a student club at my high school. And at first, it was just my friends who came because I promised them free pizza. It grew to what it is today, the largest global youth for youth mental health nonprofit. So we work in over 20 countries, directly impacting over 35,000 people every year and over 150,000 people plus indirectly.
So that's basically our story. In different ways, we find a huge community of people who are doing amazing things like yourselves and like Yalda. And, there's a lot of, we need to work together, I guess, is the thing. That's all I got.
Fantastic. We've got a little bit of time. Does anybody have questions for Ed? He gave us a lot to think about.
I think I scared everybody. I think
we're processing a little bit. I know we saw some great comments in the chat here.
I don't have a question, but I just can have a comment if that's okay.
Sure.
Hi, Ed. I'm Sheena. Thank you so much
Sheena.
for coming today and sharing your work. It's really my type of humor and my type of passion. So I really loved everything that you shared, and I'm really excited to get to know you and your work more and all these other organizations more. Because my background was in neuroscience, and then I became a filmmaker, and now I'm doing media impact work with CSS. So I'd love to snag some time with you sometime to just talk more about all of this.
I'd love to hear about it. I'm fascinated. What a great combination of skills that you have. That is so terrific, so fantastic, and so unusual.
It felt like it made no sense, and now I'm like, oh no, it makes sense. There's some sense behind this.
I want to hear more about it. Congratulations on finding that passion. That's tremendous. Tremendous.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your work today.
Sure. My pleasure.
I very much wanted to just reiterate a lot of the points Sheena was saying. I know this is the second time I've gotten to speak with you, Ed, and I came in a bit late, but such an amazing presentation. I feel like just your positivity and willing to discuss these things in like the funny, like authentic way is just so great to see. And I'm really excited to see like your work and this sort of thing become more common and more accepted. So thank you so much for being here today. It's been great.
Thanks, Abby. It was a pleasure. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm fascinated by what you got, what's happening at Scholars and Storytellers. I think it's very interesting, very cutting edge, very forward thinking, and I'm fascinated to find out more about how you do it and what you do and get more involved. I really because I think it's I think you have a tremendous opportunity with creators to put into their consciousness, kind of like, okay, there's lots of different ways to tell a story, but why and how and what? Is this just going to be, these shows, they have tremendous ability to create shows, but I think now it's like, what are you putting into the world, really? And what do you want to put in? I know people love true crime, and I know it's done well. I mean, Karen Kilgariff is one of my best friends, and My Favorite Murder is amazing. That's a great example. But really, just the idea of questioning what you do and what you're putting into the world and why and what you're hoping for, beyond like good ratings or something that'll make a lot of money. Like, this is really the time to think about those kind of things. And your organization really lends itself to people questioning themselves. And that is a great thing for creative people to do now. Yeah.
A few questions now for you, it seems. I'll let Connie and Kenna go first since I already spoke.
All right, Connie, please take it away.
No, thank you so much for that presentation. It was wonderful to see your creativity and how you're just a creator, was what I saw, and in a much needed topic. So I'm a former teacher by training, so I just wanted to know what your connection was to schools. I can see schools and teens really benefiting from this, and also foster care, another space where there's a huge need for mental health training. But again, emerging from the pandemic, there's been so little kind of supply of therapists, right? And so again, I see your work doing such good work in a space that's needed. So yeah, I would love to hear more about, what's your audience and your connection to those kinds and other kinds of youth spaces.
Thanks, Connie. I appreciate it. Thanks for your support. There's so many people in need, and I think the way I'm trying to do it is to partner with organizations that are doing it, whether it's the Jed Foundation, something as big as that, or whether it's Letters to Strangers for teens, or whether it's Gozen, who I work with all the time. We're trying to create programs, apps, all kinds of things to reach out to people, to use animation, to use comedy, to use other kids, because, like with Rini from Gozen, she has a thing called Teen Talks. It's an app. It's all over the place. Well, it's 400, 500 videos, but it's teens talking to other teens. So we're working on a Letters to Strangers podcast right now, where teens will read the letters that are written to strangers about the mental health issues. And then they will call in. We'll have a call-in show, but it'll be only teens. There'll be no one else involved with the show. because people know what's going on with them. And for an adult or somebody else who's not them to host it or put it together, it just doesn't, we really need to come from that place. I think kids have a lot of resources, natural resources, that we need to learn how to use. Instead of talking at them, let them talk, listen to them, and come from that, find formats that can allow them to do what they need to do. Because, I think as a parent, and again, there's no school for parenting, but for a parent, we work way too hard. We're trying to fix them. We're trying to fix problems. People need to have feelings, and they need to learn that feelings don't kill you and you can move through them. And the way to do that is to stand back, be present, and honor your kid who's having feelings. Nobody died from having feelings or expressing them. Let me put it that way. Nobody died from feeling in the moment and actually allowing that to happen. But as a parent, you think, oh, something's wrong. Nothing's wrong. What's wrong is that you're not comfortable with your feelings. That's what the problem is. I'm not comfortable. I can't allow it. I can't tolerate it. Anyway, I don't know why I got off on that, but you mentioned kids.
Kenny, do you go ahead?
Yes. Hi, Ed. Good to meet you. Thank you for that presentation.
Pleasure.
I'm in the business of getting patients to understand their diagnosis, especially cancer diagnosis. So I thought that scene was so powerful, seeing somebody talk from the perspective of tumor. But I'm interested. So one thing is the diversity of perspectives around diagnosis is something I'm interested in. So I'm curious, the different cultures you've encountered in doing this kind of work. Have you been able to, or what kind of challenges or barriers have you encountered in different cultures that even in comedy might have different approaches?
Well, I tell you, that's a good question. One in specific is eating disorders. So I relate to it personally because it has touched my family. And I've been in treatment centers, and what I've seen in that community is that a lot of these programs that are attached to insurance companies are in some way that they're teaching the kids to think more, which is not what these kids need. They need to act out. They need to get out of their heads, not get more into their heads in this case. So I've seen a lot of that. That's been a challenge. And it's something that's still, that's ongoing, and there are different reasons for that. I could get into a lot. So that's one community, one area that I'm familiar with. My daughter is actually a mental health advocate, and she's writing a book called The Anorexorcist, which is a graphic novel about anorexia and dealing with that. So I think there's a lot, different challenges. Like now working with Lorenzo Lewis in the Confess Project, we're working in communities of color. He is, and I'm supporting. I want to do anything I can to support that effort to bring it into the community. And he thought the barbershop is the place. And again, whatever community that you're meeting people where they're at. You're not imposing some idea on them, but you're meeting them where they're at. And a big part of that is listening to them. So whatever community it is, even if it's me working with the People's Action and talking to Trump supporters, the dialogue is, tell me about your life. Who's in your house? What's going on with your family? How's your health? And you just talk, and listen. And you'd be surprised at what you get back from these people. You'd be surprised what you get back from any people, any community. More listening, less imposing.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ina?
Mine was similar to Kenne's question. I was just curious if you had more specifically the what was the clip we viewed? The act now? No, what was it called?
Acting out, yeah.
I was just wondering if you had done that with a youth group before, or younger people before.
I've worked with it. I haven't personally, but I've worked with an organization called Rehearsal for Life in Boston. And what they do is they go into schools and they rehearse life situations in front of an audience. They do it on stage, they do it in the school, and they'll use the the improv techniques and the theater games. And they'll do this thing where like they teach kids to rehearse their issues. So they'll be like, okay, let's bring a couple people up on stage. Let's write a little scenario around them. Who here has had that issue before? Okay, you have. Okay, let's act it out. Okay, start. They'll start and they'll say, okay, freeze. All right, what should she do? What do you think she should do? So they take it into schools. They take it into high schools. They take it into grade schools. Amazingly successful. And I'm a big believer in that life rehearsal, there's a show on HBO about it, but it's not, the show on HBO is not to help people. It's an experiment. I'm not a fan of that, but to do it to help people is a great idea. To teach kids that they can externalize and people, anyone, talk out loud, try it.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. I think we're right about at time. Thank you so much, Ed. I think you're just proving that when people whine and say that, nothing can be funny anymore, that comedy is dead, it's this point of, if you're getting to the truth in the comedy, it's always going to be alive. There's always going to be something that we can talk about that will be funny and relatable, but we have to go deeper into our lives and think a little bit more deeply about what is funny in all this chaos that we're facing on a day-to-day basis. So thank you for speaking to our group and showing that, there's so much that we can do within the comedy space to get to that authenticity that people are seeking.
Well, I appreciate it, Annie. And there's going to be mental health entertainment. There's going to be a coming genre that you're going to have. And look out for the Mental Health Entertainment Network. Look out for Well Now, because we're on the verge of going a lot bigger with it.
We look forward to it. All right.
Pleasure. Thanks, everybody. Thank you so much. What a pleasure to talk to you.
Appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll be reaching out to you after this as well.
We will be in touch.
Perfect. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Everybody take care.
Bye-bye.